The universe did not much care for humanity. It was a vast, crowded, and ancient place, glittering with civilizations that had been mapping the stars, while humans were still arguing about the merits of sharpened rocks. Earth, and its fledgling interstellar colonies, was the cosmic equivalent of a new tenant in a 1,000-story skyscraper, trying to get its mail forwarded while empires rose and fell in the penthouse suites. Aaron, from Earth, knew this better than most. He was, by a galactic standard, nothing. A brief biological flicker. Yet, through a convoluted series of battlefield promotions, political assassinations he had nothing to do with, and a catastrophic mistranslation during a treaty negotiation, he was now His Luminous Imperial Majesty, Aaron, Emperor of the Scylan Protectorate. The Scylan Protectorate, after the recent Kathir border war, consisted of 2 barren moons, a debris field that had once been a moderately successful mining operation, and a gas giant inhabited by methane-based life forms that were profoundly hostile. It was, in effect, the galactic equivalent of being crowned king of a sewage treatment plant. He stood in the observation bay of the Earth Diplomatic Corps vessel, the Endeavour, which was straining its primitive hyperdrive to cross Phalorian space. The ship was a relic, all utilitarian gray plating and exposed conduits. It smelled of recycled air and nervous sweat. His sweat, mostly. He was dressed in the formal military uniform of the Earth Defense Force. It was a crisp, dark blue tunic with a high collar, respectable on Earth. But he knew what he looked like to the Phalorians. He looked like a servant. "We will be docking at the Apex Spire in approximately 20 minutes. Your Majesty," the ship's automated voice announced, its placid tone grating on his nerves. Aaron sighed, running a hand through his short, unruly brown hair. "Please, stop calling me that," he muttered to the empty room. "It just highlights the absurdity." He was not just an emperor of rubble. He was cargo. He was the price of peace. The galactic war was spiraling, consuming systems week by week. The massive Vorn hegemony was pushing outward, and Earth was directly in its path. The only power strong enough to stop the Vorn was the Phalorian Empire. And the Phalorians, in their infinite, ancient wisdom, had demanded a political marriage to seal the alliance. They had demanded an emperor. Earth, desperate and having only one to hand, had offered Aaron. His bride-to-be was Empress Neresa. Aaron had studied the intelligence reports. He had watched the holographic recordings. Empress Neresa of the Phalorian Empire, sovereign of 88 worlds, commander of the Obsidian Fleet, mistress of the Corps. She was, by all accounts, brilliant, ruthless, and utterly terrifying. The recordings showed a woman who was clearly not human. Her people were tall, slender, with skin the color of polished night, and eyes that held the cold fire of distant nebulas. She was beautiful, but it was the beauty of a perfectly forged weapon. She was rumored to be over 300 years old. She had, according to one unverified report, executed a rebellious duke by telekinetically stopping his 2 hearts. Aaron, on the other hand, was 32 years old. He was good in a ground fight, could field strip a pulse rifle in under a minute, and made excellent scrambled eggs. He felt profoundly, hopelessly outmatched. This was not a marriage. It was a sacrifice. The Endeavour shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace. The view outside the port shifted from star-streaked blackness to a breathtaking sphere of violet and silver. Phaloria Prime. Even from orbit, it was an obscenity of power. Planetary rings, clearly artificial, spun in concentric, glittering bands, pulsing with energy. A web of light. Orbital platforms and defense stations surrounded the planet like a jeweled net. "She's just a person," Aaron told himself. It was the same thing he used to say before a frontline assault. "Just a person. You've dealt with people. But he knew he was lying. She was not just a person. She was the woman who had agreed to marry a barbarian from a backward planet to secure her flank. She was a politician, and Aaron knew, deep in his gut, that he was a terrible politician. The capital city, Xylos, was not so much built upon the planet as it was fused with it. Towers of living, iridescent crystal grew from the ground, soaring miles into the thin purple air. They were connected by bridges of solid, flowing light. The air smelled of ozone and flowers he could not name. The gravity was slightly, noticeably heavier, making his military tunic feel like a lead weight. He was escorted by 8 Phaelorian honor guards. They were silent, 8 feet tall, and clad in obsidian armor that seemed to drink the light. Their faces were hidden behind polarized visors, and they moved with a liquid grace that was deeply unnerving. Aaron felt like a child, walking through a museum of ancient gods. The great hall of the apex spire was a cavern. The ceiling was a dome of pure, transparent crystal, revealing the violet sky and the glittering orbital rings above. The floor was a mosaic of stones that depicted the Phaelorian conquest of their star system. Thousands of Phaelorians lined the hall, their alien faces impossible for him to read. They were silent, their multifaceted eyes watching him. At the far end, upon a throne that looked carved from a single, massive diamond, sat the Empress. The holographic recordings had been a pale imitation. Nerissa was power-given form. She was taller than he had expected, even seated. She wore formal robes of black and silver that seemed to be woven from captured starlight. A crown of delicate, shifting metal spikes rested on her brow, above hair that was a cascade of pure white, a stark contrast to her dark, flawless skin. Her eyes, when they finally lifted to look at him, were not fiery. They were cold. They were the color of a frozen sea, a pale, piercing silver. Aaron walked the length of the hall, the sound of his human-made boots echoing in the profound alien silence. He stopped 20 feet from the dais, as instructed by the frantic Earth diplomats. He was supposed to bow. He knew he was supposed to bow. He did not. He was a soldier, and an emperor, even a useless one, and he would not crawl. He inclined his head. "Your Majesty." Nerissa studied him. Her gaze was heavy, analytical. It felt less like a greeting and more like an assessment. She was scanning a piece of equipment for flaws. When she spoke, her voice was not loud, but it filled the hall. It was a low, melodic resonance that vibrated in his chest. "You are Aaron of Earth." It was a statement of fact, layered with 1,000 nuances he could not begin to decipher. Disappointment, curiosity, annoyance. "I am," Aaron said. His own voice sounded thin and rough in the vast hall. "And you are Empress Nerissa." The projections did not do you justice. A faint ripple, a collective intake of breath, passed through the assembled Phaelorian nobles. He had not been obsequious. Nerissa's expression did not change, but one of her delicate, 3-fingered hands tightened almost imperceptibly on the arm of her throne. "The projections were accurate, human," she replied, her voice cooling by several degrees. "They depicted an asset. You are here to finalize an alliance that will save your insignificant species from eradication. Let us not mistake this for anything else." Aaron felt a flash of heat. He knew his place. He knew Earth's weakness, but he would not be spoken to like a pet. "An asset that you requested, Your Majesty," he said, keeping his voice level. "My insignificant species is currently holding the Vorn at the Hydrus sector. If we fall, your flank falls. This anything else is a mutual arrangement." He had expected anger. He had expected to be blasted into component atoms by her 2 heart-stopping telekinesis. Instead, for the briefest flicker of a second, he thought he saw something in those frozen silver eyes. It looked almost like surprise. Nerissa rose from her throne. The entire hall knelt as one, a wave of sinking bodies. Only Aaron remained standing. She descended the steps, her movements fluid and impossibly graceful. She was a full head taller than him. She stopped just inches from him, forcing him to crane his neck slightly to look up at her. She smelled of spice and cold, clean air. "You are brave, Aaron of Earth," she murmured, for his ears only. "Or you are extraordinarily foolish." "I have been accused of both," Aaron said, refusing to look away. She watched him for a long, silent moment. Her internal monologue was a storm she kept hidden behind a placid, imperial mask. This was the man, this small, pale, soft-skinned creature. This was the warrior emperor. He looked breakable. He looked simple. And yet, she could feel the static of life from every being in the hall. The hum of her guard's anxiety, the simmering ambition of her cousin to her left, the sycophantic adoration of her council. From this human, she felt almost nothing. It was a void, a calm, quiet pool in the middle of her psychic storm. It was not a lack of life. It was a stillness. It was deeply, profoundly unsettling. She had felt this only once before, in the Forbidden Archives, before the Oracle Stones. This human should have been radiating fear, a loud, sharp scent to her senses. He was not. He was just there, solid. "The wedding will be tomorrow," she announced, her voice returning to its public, commanding resonance. "It will be a Phaelorian ceremony. You will be accommodated." She turned and swept past him, back toward her throne. "I look forward to it," Aaron called to her back. "I am told Phaelorian weddings are famously brief." The honor guard who had escorted him actually flinched. Nerissa paused, but did not turn. "Only when one of the participants is found lacking human. Do try to keep up." The wedding was, in a word, agonizing. It was not brief. It was 6 hours long. Aaron was dressed in Phaelorian ceremonial armor that was heavy, elaborate, and clearly designed for a body with a different skeletal structure. The shoulders were too wide, and the helmet, a latticework of silver, pinched his temples. The ceremony involved a lot of chanting. It involved symbolic weapons, glowing crystals, and the drinking of a foul-tasting luminous blue liquid that made his tongue go numb. Through it all, Nerissa stood beside him, a statue of impossible perfection. She did not fidget. She did not seem to breathe. She simply was. He, on the other hand, was sweating. His feet ached. The numb part of his tongue was beginning to tingle in a way he did not appreciate. He found himself, bizarrely, focusing on her, the way the light caught the white strands of her hair, the intricate, almost mathematical pattern of her silver robes. He was standing next to the most powerful woman in the galaxy, marrying her to save his species, and he was mostly worried about whether the blue liquid was a mild neurotoxin. They reached the final part of the ceremony, the oath of binding. A high priest, an ancient Phaelorian who looked like he had been carved from petrified wood, held up a glowing sphere. "In this bond, the Empire finds its shield," the priest intoned. "In this bond, the Empire finds its sword," Nerissa responded, her voice clear and sharp. It was Aaron's turn. The diplomat had drilled the line into him. "In this bond, the Protectorate finds its strength." Aaron looked at the glowing sphere. He looked at the thousands of expectant alien faces. He looked at Nerissa, who was watching him with that cold, analytical gaze. "In this bond," Aaron said, his voice cutting through the ritualistic hum. "Earth survives." The priest winced. Nerissa's eyes narrowed. She had felt it again. That strange, unsettling stillness from him. But this time, it had pushed outward. a ripple of absolute, unyielding sincerity. It was not the line he was supposed to say. It was the truth. And in her court, absolute truth was a crude and dangerous weapon. "The bond is sealed," the priest said hastily, clearly anxious to be done with the barbarian human. Nerissa turned to him. As consort, he was now, technically, Prince Aaron of the Phalorian Empire. "You are disruptive, human," she said, her voice a low whisper as the hall erupted in ceremonial music. "I am honest, Your Majesty," Aaron whispered back. "You should try it sometime. It saves time on translating. Honesty is a luxury. My new husband. Do not forget that. So is survival. Looks like we both get what we want." She actually looked at him then. Truly looked at him. He was not just a pawn. He was an irritant. A strange, unpredictable variable she had just permanently bound to her empire. "The reception is next," she said, turning to begin the procession. "Try not to insult any of the sector lords. Some of them are sensitive." "You mean they stop two hearts at will?" "Only the ones from noble bloodlines," she said, without a trace of humor. Aaron sighed. "Understood. Smile, wave, and do not talk to the powerful telepaths. Got it." The procession was moving down the Great Hall, which was now being flooded with nobles and dignitaries from across the Phalorian worlds. The music was a complex, percussive rhythm that sounded like a building collapsing in harmony. Nerissa walked slightly ahead of him, her posture perfect. He walked beside and just behind her, as protocol dictated. His new position, the shield, the consort. He was scanning the crowd. It was an old habit, a warrior's tick. Check the sightlines. Check the exits. Check the hands. He saw it before anyone else. It was not a person. It was a ripple. High up, near the crystal ceiling, a patch of air shimmered, like heat haze over a desert road. It was wrong. Nerissa was greeting her cousin, Duke Zillion, her back to the anomaly. Aaron did not think. He did not analyze. He did not weigh the political cost of touching the Empress in public. He moved. Down. He roared, his voice the bark of a soldier on the battlefield. He lunged, grabbing the Empress of Phaloria by her armored shoulders and shoving her, hard, toward the ground. It was an act of profound, unthinkable treason. A bolt of coherent, emerald green energy seared the air exactly where her head had been 1 second before. It struck the crystal wall behind the dais, exploding in a shower of vaporized crystal. The hall erupted into screams. 3 figures dropped from the ceiling, their descent slowed by grav chutes. They were clad in black, articulated armor that shimmered, chameleon tech that blended imperfectly with the marble floor. They were not Phalorians. Nerissa, to her credit, recovered instantly. She was a warrior queen, not a diplomat. She rolled with his shove, coming up on one knee, a ceremonial but lethally sharp dagger appearing in her hand from a hidden sheath. The Phalorian honor guards were already moving, their obsidian armor a blur, raising their energy lances. But the assassins were fast. One landed near Aaron, its arm unfolding into a plasma caster. Aaron had no weapon. The music was still echoing, a frantic, discordant mess. He was in a ridiculous ceremonial helmet and armor that did not fit. He grabbed the nearest object, a heavy, golden urn filled with glowing Phalorian flowers, and swung it with all his strength. He was just a human. But he was a strong human. The urn connected with the assassin's head, with a sickening crunch of metal and alloy. The assassin dropped, its camouflage suit flickering, revealing a reptilian, gray-skinned Ziltian. Mercenaries. A second assassin was aiming at Nerissa, who was busy sinking her dagger into the throat guard of the third. "Behind you!" Aaron yelled. He kicked the fallen assassin's plasma caster. It skittered across the polished floor, stopping at Neresa's feet. She did not pause. She kicked the weapon up into her free hand, spun, and fired a single, precise shot into the chest of the second attacker. It was over in less than 12 seconds. The great hall was plunged into a shocked, echoing silence, broken only by the hum of the guards' active lances and the faint, acrid smell of burnt crystal and ozone. Wait, Aaron sniffed. No, not ozone, just burnt air. 2 assassins were dead. The one Aaron had hit with the urn was twitching, gravely wounded. Aaron stood breathing heavily, his hands clenched. The urn was still in his grip, dripping blue Phalorian water. He looked at his new wife. Neresa was standing over the body of the assassin she had shot. Her silver robes were spattered with drops of green Ziltian blood. Her chest was rising and falling. Her pale silver eyes were not cold now. They were blazing. They were furnaces. She slowly turned her head and looked at him. She was not looking at a political pawn. She was not looking at an irritant. She was not looking at a human. She was looking at the only reason she was still alive. The stillness around him was back. He realized. That strange, quiet void he sometimes felt in combat. He felt it settle over him, a cloak of absolute calm. Neresa felt it too. It was a physical pressure, a silencing of the chaos. It emanated from him. This, human. Aaron broke the silence. He let the heavy urn drop to the floor with a loud clang. He grimaced, wiping a smudge of dirt and blue flower pulp from his face. Well, he said, his voice echoing slightly in the stunned hall. The honeymoon is off to a roaring start. Neresa tucked her bloody dagger back into its hidden sheath. She straightened her robes, her imperial mask of calm sliding back into place, though her eyes still burned. She walked over to him, her steps measured, ignoring the chaos of her guards arresting the wounded mercenary. She stopped in front of him. "Do not be ridiculous, human," she said, her voice a low, dangerous purr. "The honeymoon is the war." She reached up, a shockingly intimate gesture, and plucked a single blue petal from his ridiculous helmet. "And it appears," she continued, her silver eyes locking with his, "that you are officially invited." The great hall was a whirlwind of obsidian-armored guards, panicked nobles, and the sharp, metallic scent of energy discharge. Lord Xylar, High Commander of the Phalorian Military Council, strode through the chaos like a storm front. He was a massive Phalorian, broader and taller than any Aaron had yet seen, his dark skin marked with silver honor scars. His armor was not ceremonial, but functional, matte black and bristling with emitters. He radiated an almost physical pressure, a field of pure, disciplined authority. "Secure the perimeter." Xylar's voice was a low-frequency boom that cut through the hysteria. "Full diagnostic on all internal security. I want the transport logs for the last 3 days. And get that Ziltian filth to Interrogation Bay 4. I will handle it personally." He glanced at Neresa, his silver eyes cold and analytical. "Your Majesty, you are unharmed." It was a statement, not a question. "Thanks to my consort, High Commander," Neresa said. Her voice was steady, but the fire in her eyes had not dimmed. She was still gripping the plasma caster she had taken from the assassin. Xylar's gaze flicked to Aaron for the first time. It was pure, undiluted dismissal. He looked Aaron up and down, taking in the ill-fitting armor, the human sweat, and the dripping golden urn Aaron had only just set down. "A fortunate reflex," Xylar said. He turned back to Neresa. "You will be moved to the Citadel. It is the only place I can guarantee your security." "We will be moved to the Imperial Wing," Neresa countered, her voice sharp. "And we will be handling the interrogation. This was an attack on the throne." "I will see the man who paid for it." "Your Majesty, with respect." Xylar's voice was a granite wall of polite denial. A wounded Ziltian mercenary is a military matter. My specialists. Are your specialists the ones who let 3 assassins into my wedding? Nerissa asked, her voice dangerously soft. Xylar's jaw tightened. The internal breach will be found, I assure you. But now is the time for expertise. My expertise, Arin said, his voice quiet, is in mercenaries. I have fought them for 10 years. They are not loyal. They are purchased. You can torture him, and he will tell you whatever he thinks you want to hear to make the pain stop. But it will probably be a lie. Xylar turned his head slowly to look at Arin. The pressure of his presence intensified. It was like standing too close to a massive engine. Arin felt a strange, cold vibration from the Phalorian, a thrum of power that was deeply, instinctively wrong. Your expertise, human, is in ground skirmishes on mud planets, Xylar said. This is Phalorian justice. Is Phalorian justice finding the truth, or just getting a confession? Arin retorted, refusing to be cowed. I know his species. Ziltians are terrified of sensory deprivation. Leave him in a dark, silent room for 2 hours. Completely silent. Then, I will talk to him. He will be desperate to fill the void. Nerissa looked from Arin to Xylar. She could feel the friction between them, 2 powerful males posturing. But the human's suggestion was specific. It was tactical. Lord Xylar, she said, her tone final. You will secure the palace. My consort and I will oversee the interrogation. Do it his way. 2 hours. Complete silence. Xylar's silver eyes narrowed. He looked as if he wanted to argue, to physically brush Arin aside. But he was, for now, a loyal soldier. He executed a perfect, sharp Phalorian bow. As you command, Your Majesty. He spun on his heel, his black armor humming, and strode from the hall, already barking orders that sent guards scrambling. Nerissa finally looked at Arin, letting out a slow breath she seemed to have been holding since the first shot. The Imperial Wing, she said, her voice tired. Now. As you command, Your Majesty. Arin mimicked, giving her a sloppy human salute. Her eyes flashed. Do not mock me, human. You just saved my life. It complicates things. Things were already complicated, Arin said, walking beside her as a phalanx of guards formed around them. We were married. Remember, I am just trying to be a supportive husband. You are a disruptive, chaotic element, she countered, as they swept through a massive marble corridor. And your quarters are a tactical nightmare. You will stay in my wing. The rooms are adjoined, but sealed. You will have your own space. Adjoined, Arin raised an eyebrow. Just like a real, functioning marriage. Do we get to argue about who controls the atmospheric temperature? You will find Phalorian humor as lacking as your grasp of protocol, she said, not looking at him. You are a target, and as my consort, your weakness makes me weak. I thought I just proved I was not the weak one, Arin said, the humor draining from his voice. I was the only one who saw it coming. She stopped, turning to him in the empty corridor. The guards held their position, a silent circle 20 feet away. How? She demanded. Her voice was low. You are human. Your senses are primitive. Your eyes are flat. Your hearing is limited. How did you see a shielded chameleon field? Arin hesitated. How did he explain it? It was not something he saw. It was something he felt. The same stillness that was settling over him now. A quiet, cold awareness. It was the air in the hall. It had felt wrong, taut, like the moment before a lightning strike. I am a soldier, he said, settling for a half-truth. You learn to read the room. The air felt static. Wrong. Nerissa studied him. Her gaze was as piercing as any scanner. She knew he was lying. Or at least, not telling her the whole truth. That unsettling void she sensed from him. It was stronger now. It was like a shield. A null space in her psychic-heavy world. Static, she repeated, her voice flat. She stored the information away. Come. The 2 hours are almost up. Interrogation Bay 4 was a black, sterile box. The Ziltian mercenary was huddled in the center of the room, shivering. Aaron's sensory deprivation trick had worked. The silence of the void was more terrifying to his species than any physical pain. Nerissa and Aaron stood behind a one-way transparent wall. Lord Xylar was there, pointedly, standing in the corner with his arms crossed, radiating disapproval. "Send me in," Aaron said. "Alone." "Unacceptable," Xylar boomed. "He is hostile." "He is terrified," Aaron countered. "You go in there. He will clam up." "Let me—" Nerissa nodded. "Open the door." Aaron entered the room. The Ziltian flinched, his reptilian eyes wide. Aaron dragged a simple metal chair over and sat down, 10 feet from the mercenary. He did not speak. He just sat. He waited. 1 minute. 2 minutes. The silence stretched. The Ziltian began to rock, his claws scraping the floor. "Please," the mercenary finally hissed, his voice cracking. "It is too quiet. Say something." "Who hired you?" Aaron asked, his voice calm. "A broker, on Cygnus." "I do not know, I swear. Just a data drop. Credits. A lot of credits. A lot of credits to kill the Empress. You had to know it was a suicide mission. Who would pay that much?" "Not just her," the Ziltian whispered, leaning in. "Her and you, the human." Aaron frowned. "Me, I am nobody. I am an empty title." No. You were the primary. The abomination. That was the word. He said the abomination must be cleansed. The Empress was secondary. Behind the glass, Nerissa's blood ran cold. Primary. Aaron pressed. "Who is he, the priest, the voice?" "He spoke to us. Through the broker's terminal. He had eyes. All black. He said it was the will of the Silent Dawn." Aaron felt a chill. Not just from the words. As the mercenary spoke, Aaron felt that same wrongness he had felt in the hall. A twisting, cold sensation in his gut. It was a lie. A partial lie. "The Silent Dawn," Aaron said, pushing past the feeling. "A cult. A religion. An old one. Older than the Empire. He said the war was a gift, a fire to cleanse the rot. He said the Empress's alliance with your kind was the final sin, that your union would bring the plague. So, this Silent Dawn wants to disrupt the alliance. They are working for the Vorn." "No." The mercenary shook his head, frantic. "They want the Vorn to win. They help the Vorn. They believe the Empire is decadent, corrupt. They want it all to burn. They said killing you both would appease the true God. That it would end the war." This was bigger than a simple coup. This was fanaticism. "This priest," Aaron said. "Where is he?" "I do not know." Aaron stood up, his chair scraping the floor. The mercenary flinched. Aaron felt the cold, sharp feeling in his gut again. Stronger this time. The lie. "You are lying," Aaron said, his voice dropping. "I am not," the Ziltian shrieked. "You are," Aaron insisted. He did not know how he knew. He just did. The stillness inside him was churning. It felt like a deep, cold certainty. "You know who he is." "I swear by the voids." "Stop lying," Aaron roared. The word came out with a force that was not just sound. The air in the room shimmered. The single light panel overhead flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. The mercenary screamed, a high-pitched wail of pure terror. Behind the glass, Neresa's hand flew to her console. Lights. What happened? Lord Xylar was no longer looking at the mercenary. He was staring at Aaron, his silver eyes wide, a look of profound shock and recognition. The lights flickered back on. Aaron was standing over the Ziltian, breathing hard. He was pale, his hands shaking. He felt sick. He felt like he had just run 10 miles. The mercenary was curled in a fetal position, weeping. "It is Xylar," he sobbed. "High Commander Xylar. He is the voice. He is the priest." The silence that followed was absolute. Aaron stumbled back, staring at his own hands. What had he done, Lord Xylar? Behind the glass, straightened up. The shock on his face was gone, replaced by a cold, appraising look. He did not look like a man who had been exposed. He looked like a man who had just confirmed a hypothesis. A fascinating, if primitive, display. Xylar's voice boomed over the intercom. "He has broken the prisoner, Your Majesty. A name, extracted through terror. How very human." Nerissa was staring at Arin, her face a mask of stone. She ignored Xylar. She hit the door control. "Aaron," she commanded. "Out, now!" Guards flooded the room, seizing the hysterical mercenary. Aaron walked out, his legs unsteady. Nerissa faced him in the corridor. Xylar was right behind her, his presence a suffocating weight. "Xylar," Aaron said, his voice rough. "He said Xylar. He said the name of the man who ordered his capture," Xylar said smoothly, stepping forward. "A desperate lie from a broken mind. He sees me as his tormentor. It is a common psychological reaction." "It did not feel common," Aaron said, narrowing his eyes at the High Commander. He could feel the power rolling off the Phalorian, a dark, heavy tide. It was nothing like what he felt. His was a cold stillness. Xylar's was a hot, predatory hunger. "Your feelings are irrelevant," Xylar said, "but your little outburst was useful. It confirms the threat is internal. A cult. The Silent Dawn. Blasphemous traitors. I will begin a full purge of the military." "You will do no such thing," Nerissa snapped. "You will not tear my empire apart on the word of a single mercenary. We have a name. The Silent Dawn. We will investigate. Quietly." "Quietly," Xylar scoffed. "Your Majesty, they tried to kill you. There is no room for subtlety." "Lord Xylar," Nerissa's voice was ice. "This is my investigation. You will supply me with all military intelligence on known extremist cults. You will not, however, begin a public purge that could incite panic and destroy morale. Am I clear?" Xylar held her gaze for a long moment. It was a silent battle of wills, and for the first time, Aaron saw a crack in the High Commander's perfect loyalty. He was furious, but he was not ready to show his hand. "Crystal, Your Majesty," he said, and the words were a physical force. He bowed, a gesture full of barely concealed contempt. "I will hunt these rats for you, personally." He turned and strode away, his black armor seeming to devour the light as he went. Nerissa watched him go, her expression unreadable. "He is lying," Aaron said, the moment Xylar was gone. "I know," Nerissa said, turning to him. "His psychic field was turbulent. He is masking a great deal. The question is, was the mercenary telling the truth? Or was this entire scenario a performance to frame my High Commander?" "It was not a performance," Aaron said. "What happened in that room? I did not mean to do that. The light. It just happened." Nerissa looked at him, her silver eyes probing. You did more than break a light, human. You projected a wave of pure, chaotic energy, a telekinetic pulse. I cannot do that, Aaron said, shaking his head. Humans do not have that. We are not telepaths. We are just biology. You are not just biology, Nerissa said, her voice dropping. I have felt it since you arrived. The null space. The void. I thought it was a lack of psionic ability. It is not. It is a suppression. A shield. And what I just saw was a crack in that shield. She started walking, forcing him to follow. The ancient Phalorian texts speak of a line. Before the Empire, before the gods we acknowledge. A race of beings who did not speak to the void. They commanded it. They could shape reality. They were called the Shapers, the Old Ones. They reached her private wing. The doors, carved from a single piece of Phalorian ironwood, slid open. The rooms were vast, minimalist, and elegant, with one entire wall, a transparent crystal overlooking the city. Our historians believed they were a myth, she continued, moving to the window. A legend to frighten children. They were said to have interbred with primitive species across the galaxy, seeding their bloodline. A bloodline that was, by all accounts, extinct. Aaron stood in the middle of the room, feeling cold. You think I am one of them? I think, Nerissa said, turning to him, that you are something more than a human soldier. The Silent Dawn called you an abomination. Why? Because they fear you? They fear your blood. Orin looked at his hands. He felt sick again. He was a soldier. He fixed engines. He followed orders. He was not some mythical space wizard. He did not want to be. I am not, he said, his voice low. I am Aaron, from Earth. My father was a mechanic. And what did your father do when he was angry? Nerissa asked, her voice soft. Did the tools ever jump into his hand? Did the lights ever flicker? Aaron's blood ran cold. He had a memory, faint, like a dream. Him, as a child, maybe 5 or 6 years old. He had fallen from a tree. His father had been across the yard. Aaron had been terrified, screaming, and his father had been there. He had crossed 30 feet in an instant, faster than any human could move, and caught him. He had never thought of it again, until now. That is my internal conflict, he thought, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. He did not want this. This power was a monster. It was what made people like Xylar. He knows, Orin said, his voice hollow. Xylar. In the interrogation room. He did not look at the mercenary. He looked at me. He recognized it. Yes, Nerissa agreed. He is not just a traitor. He is a believer. This cult worships the primordial void, the power you seem to possess. But your blood, it is an aberration to them, a heresy. You are a rival. Great, Orin said, the dark, sarcastic humor returning as a defense. So, I am not just a political pawn. I am a heretic space god. And the head of your army wants me dead. This just keeps getting better. He sank onto a low, Phalorian couch that was as hard as stone. So, what now? We have a traitor we cannot expose. We have traitors, Nerissa corrected him. Xylar is not acting alone. The attack was too precise. The security breach is too clean. He has allies. On my council. Perhaps even in my family. She paced the room, a caged predator. We are in a difficult position. Xylar controls the military. To accuse him publicly without absolute proof would be civil war. The Vorn would be at this planet's throat within a week. So, we are prisoners, Orin said. In your own palace. We are, Nerissa said, reluctant allies. You and I. She stopped in front of him, looking down. The Empress of 88 worlds, trapped in her own home. You are afraid, she stated. Yes, Aaron admitted. I am a grunt, Nerissa. I fight with a rifle, not with whatever that was. That thing in the room. It is not me. I do not want it. You may not have a choice, she said, her voice softening, losing its imperial edge for the first time. If Xylar is what I believe he is, if he is a true priest of the dawn, his power is immense. He has been hiding it, just as you have, but he has been training. And I have been changing fuel cells, Aaron muttered. Aaron, she said, and the use of his name without a human or consort attached to it startled him. You saved my life. You uncovered a conspiracy that goes to the heart of my empire. You are, whether you like it or not, the only person in this palace I can trust. That is a terrible, terrible strategic position for you to be in, he said, looking up at her. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched the corner of her lips. It was a brief, cold, but genuine expression. Our situation is suboptimal. Suboptimal, Aaron repeated. Right. Well, what is the plan? Suboptimal ally. We cannot just sit here and wait for Xylar to frame us for high treason. No, Nerissa said. We do not wait. We find his allies. We find the proof we need. Xylar has a fortress monastery, an ancestral home on the moon of Xylos. It is said to be where the Silent Dawn was born. He goes there to meditate. He is planning something. And we are going to find out what? A field trip, Aaron said, standing up. To the home of the superpowered evil cult leader who controls the entire army. Just the two of us. Just the two of us, Nerissa confirmed. We cannot risk taking anyone. We leave tonight. Aaron ran a hand through his hair. This was insane. This was a suicide mission. But he looked at Nerissa. He saw the fire in her eyes, the steel in her spine. She was not going to run. She was going to fight. And, disturbingly, he found he was not going to let her go alone. All right, he sighed. But I am picking the ship, and I get to fly. Your Phalorian tech is too polite. I would expect nothing less, Nerissa said. Try not to break anything on the way out. Human. I will add it to my wedding vows. Your Majesty, he retorted. The fragile, barbed wire of their alliance was set. The private docking bay was 2 levels below the Imperial wing. It was designed for the Empress's personal escapes, a fact Aaron found both ironic and deeply practical. Nerissa had changed. She had shed the elaborate wedding armor for a sleek, dark gray undersuit that looked more like a second skin than clothing. It was woven from a material that seemed to shift between shadow and solid. And Aaron had no doubt it was more protective than his own simple, black flight suit. She still looked regal, and she still carried the plasma caster she had taken from the assassin. The ship is this way, Aaron said, leading her toward the rear of the bay. I assume you have chosen one of our new Shadow-class infiltrators, she said. They are fast, silent, and psychically shielded. Nope, Aaron said, stopping in front of a ship huddled in the darkest corner. It was ugly. It was an old Earth Force Jackdaw model recon courier. It was asymmetrical, lumpy, and covered in mismatched plating from a dozen different repairs. Its engines were oversized, bolted on with heavy-duty braces, and the cockpit glass was scarred from atmospheric re-entry. Nerissa stopped. She stared at the vessel. This, she said, her voice dangerously flat, is what you have chosen. This, Aaron said, slapping the hull with a proud clang, is the prodigal. I borrowed her from the diplomatic corps. She's got a non-standard Phalorian shield generator I jury-rigged, a sensor array from a Cathir cruiser, and an engine core that is probably technically a war crime. She's perfect. It looks, Nerissa said, walking a slow circle around it, like it smells of burnt oil and poor life decisions. That is exactly what she smells of, Aaron said, keying the ramp. But Phalorian ships are built to ask permission. This one is built to beg forgiveness. Now, are you coming? Or are you going to stand there judging my life choices? We are on a schedule. Nerissa looked at the ship, then at Aaron, then back at the ship. She let out a slow, long-suffering sigh. It appears my marriage has come with a significant downgrade in transportation. She swept up the ramp, her movements fluid even in her obvious displeasure. If this machine gets us killed, human, my ghost will haunt your entire species. Get in line, Aaron said, following her into the cockpit. The cockpit was cramped, a mess of exposed wiring, mismatched screens, and two well-worn pilot chairs. Aaron dropped into the left seat, his hands flying across the controls. The ship came to life with a groan, a shudder, and the deep, throaty thrum of an overpowered fusion engine. This is cozy, Nerissa said, settling into the co-pilot chair with visible reluctance. The chair was clearly built for a human, and she looked like a queen, forced to sit on a milk crate. Strap in. We have to clear the orbital grid before Xylar even knows we are gone. The grid will not fire on my personal transponder code, she said. They will if Xylar has flagged you as compromised by the human consort. Aaron countered. I am not using your code. I am using the code for a garbage scow. Hold on. He did not wait for a reply. He slammed his hand on the throttle, and the prodigal shot out of the docking bay, the G-force pushing Nerissa back into her seat. Are you trying to break me? She gasped, her hands gripping the armrests. Just proving she has spirit, Aaron yelled over the roar of the engines. He weaved the ship through the web of orbital traffic, ignoring the blaring proximity alerts and the irate commands from Phalorian traffic control. Garbage scow 499er, the control voice squawked. You are off vector. Return to your designated lane. Sorry, control, Aaron said, pitching the ship into a hard dive toward the dark side of the moon. Inertial dampeners are on the fritz, just trying to vent the reactor. That is not a valid maneuver. It is not a valid ship, Aaron out. He cut the comm. He looked over at Nerissa. Her white hair was slightly mussed, and her pale silver eyes were wide. Not with fear, but with a kind of shocked adrenaline. You, she said, are a terrible pilot. I am the best pilot, Aaron corrected her, grinning. A terrible pilot would have hit that orbital platform. I only almost hit it. The distinction is meaningless if we are a cloud of plasma. Ah, you are learning. Now, just sit there and look imperial. We have a 30-minute flight to Xylos, and Xylar is not the only problem we have. As if summoned by his words, a secure comms panel on Nerissa's side of the console chimed. It was the Imperial Council frequency. Nerissa's demeanor snapped back. The adrenaline-flushed woman was gone, replaced by the Empress. She activated the holographic display. The face of Duke Kalen appeared. He was an older Phalorian, his face a web of aristocratic lines. He looked worried. Your Majesty, he said, bowing his head. I apologize for the intrusion. We have an urgent situation. Speak, Duke, Nerissa said, her voice a cold, regal instrument. It is the Cygnian system. The Vorn have broken through the Hydrus blockade. They are launching a full-scale assault on the mining colonies. Lord Xylar. He has refused to dispatch the Third Fleet. Nerissa's hands clenched into fists. On what grounds? He claims, the Duke said, clearly uncomfortable, that the internal threat is too great. He has cited the Silent Dawn conspiracy and the attempt on your life. He has declared martial law in the core sector and recalled all fleets to protect the throne. He says he cannot spare the ships. He is abandoning them, Nerissa whispered, her voice laced with venom. Your Majesty, Arin said, his voice low. He is giving the Vorn a free victory. He is creating an alibi. Nerissa ignored him, her eyes fixed on the Duke. Duke Kalen, you are my ranking admiral after Xylar. I am ordering you, as your Empress, to take command of the Third Fleet and relieve the Signian system. Xylar's order is countermanded. The Duke looked pained. Your Majesty, I cannot. Lord Xylar has invoked the rights of war. With the threat being internal, military authority supersedes the throne's strategic command. The Council they have voted to support his prudence. Prudence, Nerissa's voice rose. A dangerous storm gathering. It is strategic abandonment. He is sacrificing thousands of allies. The Council believes his caution is warranted until the traitors are found, Kalen said, his eyes dropping. They are afraid. He has convinced them that the Silent Dawn is everywhere. Your Majesty, without proof, my hands are tied. The Signian system will fall in less than 12 hours. Nerissa was shaking. Arin could see the visible tremor of her rage. She was an Empress, but she was trapped. Her own council, her own general, had checkmated her. If Cygnus falls, she said, her voice dropping to a terrifying whisper, I will hold every member of that council accountable. Kalen, do you understand me? Yes, Your Majesty, the Duke said, bowing again. But it will not save them. Nerissa cut the connection. The hologram vanished. She sat in the co-pilot chair, staring into the blackness of space. She was completely, utterly still. Arin watched her, his own anger simmering. You cannot win a war, he said quietly. If your own general is holding your sword, he's not just a traitor. He's smart. They are going to die, she said. Her voice was hollow. It was not the voice of an Empress. It was the voice of someone who had just lost. Thousands of them, families, civilians, all because Xylar wants his purge. Arin saw it then, the crack in the diamond. She was not just a cold, calculating monarch. She was a woman carrying the weight of 88 worlds, and she felt every single death. Then we make this trip count, Arin said, his voice hard. We do not have the luxury of grieving right now. We need that proof. We need to nail him to the wall, or this is just the beginning. Nerissa looked at him, her silver eyes refocusing. The fire was returning, but it was colder now. It was the fire of pure, focused vengeance. You are right, she said. He has made his move. Now we make ours. Take us down. And Arin. No more almost hitting things. Yes, Your Majesty, he said. The humor gone. Xylar's fortress monastery was not on the populated side of the moon. It was in the northern wastes, a desolate expanse of black basalt mountains and frozen methane canyons. The fortress itself was carved into the largest mountain, a black dagger of a tower aimed at the stars. He is compensating for something, Arin muttered, setting the prodigal down in a deep canyon a mile away. It is an ancient fortress, built during the first expansion wars, Nerissa said, checking the charge on her plasmacaster. It is a symbol of old power. The Silent Dawn believes the first Phalorians were pure, that our alliance, our technology, it is all corruption. Sounds like every fanatic group I have ever met, Arin said. He pulled a compact pulse rifle from a hidden compartment. They hate everything that is new, so they try to destroy it. They moved through the canyon, the silence absolute. The gravity was light, and their movements felt buoyant. Nerissa moved with a predator's grace, her dark suit blending into the shadows. Arin, a soldier of the mud and rubble, felt clumsy beside her, his boots scraping on the volcanic rock. They reached the base of the fortress, a single gate, 30 feet high, made of solid, dark metal. Guards, two, Nerissa whispered, pointing to scanners high above. And automated sentries. The gate is magnetically sealed and genetically encoded. So, we knock, Aaron asked. So, we find another way, she countered. Phaelorian fortresses of this age always have one flaw. They were built for honor, not for stealth. They have ventilation shafts for the lower geothermal reactors. She led him around the base of the tower, to a sheer cliff face. Hidden in a fissure was a large, grated opening. This is it, she said. Aaron looked at the shaft. This was not designed for humanoid life forms. It was designed for heat exchange, she said. She began to climb, her long, slender limbs finding purchase in the rock. Try to keep up, Aaron sighed, holstering his rifle, and began to climb. The shaft was dark, narrow, and smelled of sulfur and cold metal. It was an agonizingly tight fit. Aaron was forced to wriggle on his stomach, pushing his rifle ahead of him. Nerissa, with her slender Phaelorian build, moved with more ease. But he could hear her breathing. A controlled, sharp, inhale-exhale. I just want it on the record, Aaron grunted, his shoulders scraping the ceiling. That this is a terrible first date. He heard her stop moving. Date, she whispered back, her voice echoing strangely in the metal tube. You know, a social ritual. Two people, newly married. They go somewhere. Dark, uncomfortable, potentially life-threatening. This checks all the boxes. There was a long silence. Aaron was suddenly very aware that he was in a metal tube with an alien Empress who could probably kill him with her bare hands. Human, she finally said, her voice tight. If you make one more comment about our marriage, I will demonstrate the flexibility of my combat weave on your throat. Just checking, Aaron wheezed, pushing forward. Almost there. I see a vertical shaft. They emerged into a vast, dark chamber. It was cold. The air was heavy. It was a cavernous, circular room. The walls made of the same black, volcanic rock as the mountain. In the center, illuminated by a single, pulsing beam of green light from above, was a raised platform. On it was a single console, a databank. This is it, Nerissa breathed, her eyes scanning the darkness. A shrine. They moved toward the center, their footsteps echoing in the oppressive silence. This feels wrong, Aaron said, his hand tight on his rifle. The old feeling was back, the cold, static wrongness in his gut. It is a place of power, Nerissa said. This is where he communes with his true God. She stepped up to the console. It was Phaelorian, but ancient. The script was a dead dialect. Can you access it? Aaron asked, scanning the shadows around them. I am the Empress, she said. All Phaelorian technology answers to me. She placed her hand on the console. It chimed, and holographic displays flickered to life. She began to work, her fingers flying across the interface. It is here, all of it. He is arrogant. He kept records. What? Aaron asked. Communications. With the Vorn High Command. He gave them the codes for the Hydrus blockade. He engineered the Signian attack. It is all here. He is planning to let the Vorn purge the outer territories. He believes it will cleanse the Empire. Then he plans to use a fleet of Silent Dawn loyalists to attack the Vorn while they are overextended. He is insane, Aaron whispered. He is starting a fire and hoping he can rule the ashes. He is also, Nerissa said, her voice turning to ice, in communication with a human splinter group, the Terran Purity Front. He has been trading them Phaelorian tech, in exchange for information, on you. Aaron felt his blood run cold. Me. They are nobodies. Crazies. They are his crazies. He has been hunting your bloodline. Aaron. He... Oh, by the first stars.
What? This is not just a databank. It is a gene archive. He has records going back 1,000 years. On your family. He has been tracking the Shaper bloodline. He was not just trying to kill you at the wedding. He was trying to capture you.
Download it, Aaron said, his voice flat. Download all of it. We are leaving. Nerissa produced a data chip and inserted it. The console chimed as the transfer began, and every light in the chamber snapped on. Clang, clang, clang. Massive metal doors, unseen in the darkness, slammed shut, sealing the room.
It was a trap,
Nerissa said, spinning, her plasmacaster raised. A voice boomed through the chamber, echoing from all sides. It was Xylar. The abomination and the harlot Empress. How foolish. A massive hologram of the High Commander flickered to life above the console. He was in his black armor, his face a mask of smug contempt. Did you truly believe I would not anticipate this? He laughed. I wanted you to come here. I wanted you to see the truth before you die. Xylar, Nerissa shouted, her voice ringing with command. You will be tried for this treason. Tried, the hologram boomed. I am the judge. The war on the Cygnus front is my perfect alibi. I am on the command deck of my flagship, defending the Empire. You will be found dead, killed by your unstable human consort, in a fit of alien madness. A tragedy. I will be forced to assume the regency. From the shadows, figures emerged, 10 of them. They were clad in the same black, articulated armor as the wedding assassins. Silent Dawn fanatics. Xylar's personal guard. They raised their energy lances, their green tips glowing. The fight began without a word. Nerissa was a blur. She fired her plasmacaster, a precise shot that vaporized the head of one soldier. She ducked under a return blast, her ceremonial dagger appearing in her other hand. She lunged, sinking it deep into the weak point of another soldier's neck guard. Aaron was pure tactics. He fired his pulse rifle, laying down suppression fire. He dropped one soldier with a burst to the chest, then rolled behind a stone pillar as energy lances seared the air where he had been. He and Nerissa fell back to back, a small island in a sea of enemies. 8 left, he yelled. They are too disciplined, she yelled back. But they were Xylar's best. They advanced, 2 by 2, their shields overlapping. They were hurting them. Nerissa saw an opening. She darted out, sinking her dagger into a soldier's knee. As he fell, another soldier swung his lance like a club. It was a glancing blow, but it had all his strength. It struck her side, the green energy field burning through her combat weave. She cried out, a sharp, pained sound, and fell to one knee. The soldier who had hit her raised his lance for a killing blow. Aaron saw it, the soldier's arm, the glowing green lance, the pained, shocked look on Nerissa's face. Time did not slow down. It stopped. The rage from the interrogation room, the fear for Cygnus, the sick, cold wrongness. It all coalesced into a single, pure, silent no. He screamed. It was not a sound. It was a fundamental breaking of the air. A wave of pure, colorless force erupted from him. The soldier standing over Nerissa just stopped. He was frozen, his arm raised, his face a mask of surprise. The energy bolt from his lance hung in the air, a glowing green tear, crawling inch by inch toward Nerissa. The other 7 soldiers were not frozen. They were thrown. They flew backward as if swatted by an invisible god, slamming into the basalt walls with the sound of crushing armor and breaking bone. They did not fall. They stuck to the walls, held there by a force that defied gravity. Aaron turned his head, his eyes burning, his nose suddenly gushing blood. He looked at the soldier still frozen over his wife. He pulled. The time bubble vanished. The soldier was yanked sideways, as if on a wire, and slammed into the ceiling so hard the rock cracked. Silence. The only sound was Aaron's harsh, rasping breath. The hologram of Xylar flickered, distorted by the raw energy Aaron had unleashed. His face was no longer smug. It was not anger. It was not fear. It was a mask of pure, unadulterated, religious horror. It is true. Xylar's voice crackled, full of static. The old blood. It is awake. The hologram vanished. Aaron stood in the center of the room, arm outstretched. He was shaking, a deep, bone-rattling tremor. He felt hollow. He felt scoured clean. He dropped to his knees. He looked at his hands, covered in his own blood. What did I do? Nerissa was staring at him. Her wound was smoking, and she was clearly in great pain. But her eyes, they were wide with awe, terror, and a terrible dawning understanding. She pushed herself up, ignoring her injury, and crawled to him. Aaron! He flinched, pulling away. Stay back. I did not mean. I am a monster. You are not a monster. She reached him, her hand landing on his shoulder. Her touch was firm, grounding him. You just saved my life. Again. I stopped time, he whispered, horrified. He looked at the men plastered to the walls, twisted at impossible angles. I broke them. This is not human. No, she said, her voice rough with pain. It is not. She grabbed his arm, using him as a lever to pull herself up. She was leaning on him, and he, shaking, was leaning on her. It is power, and Xylar has seen it. He is no longer just a traitor. He is a terrified fanatic. He will not stop. He will burn the galaxy to kill you now. She looked at him, her imperial mask gone. He saw the woman, burdened and afraid, but resolute. And in her eyes, for the first time, he saw absolute, unqualified trust. In that moment, he knew this was not about Earth. It was not about politics. He wanted to save her. You are bleeding, she said. Her voice was soft. She reached up with her free hand, her fingers gently brushing the blood from his upper lip. It was a gesture of simple, startling concern. You are shot, he countered, his voice hoarse. It is a flesh wound. It will heal. She forced herself to stand, wincing as she put weight on her leg. Did you get the data? Aaron fumbled at his belt. The data chip was in his hand. He had grabbed it from the console in the chaos. Yes. Good. A small, grim smile touched her lips. Then this was not a complete disaster. My definition of disaster must be different from yours, he said, his body aching. My definition involves losing human. She slung her arm over his shoulder, and he put his arm around her waist, taking her weight. We are not losing, not yet. She pulled him toward the door, which was now open. Now, she panted. Let's see if your primitive ship can get us home before you bleed out on my boots. It is my ship, Aaron said, matching her step for step. I will bleed where I want. The flight back to Phaeloria Prime was a blur of controlled agony. The prodigal shuddered around them, its primitive systems complaining about the orbital maneuvers. But Aaron kept his touch on the stick light, his mind a crystalline, cold void. The bleeding from his nose had stopped, but his head felt like it was full of shattered glass. Beside him, Nerissa was rigid with pain. She had used a medical kit from the ship's emergency supplies to spray a dermal sealant over the energy burn on her side. It stopped the bleeding, but the flesh was charred. She had not made a sound since they left the moon. We are approaching the orbital grid, Aaron said, his voice a dry rasp. Xylar will have his flag on every military channel. If we use your transponder, We are dead. If we use the garbage scow code, they might be on alert for it. We are going in silent. Silent running, Neresa's voice was tight. Against an Imperial-grade sensor net, they will spot our heat signature in seconds. Not if our heat signature is garbage, Aaron said. He angled the ship toward one of the massive, city-sized orbital platforms that processed the planet's waste. He cut the main engines, relying only on maneuvering thrusters. We are going to ride the ejection plume, he explained. You are going to what? They vent processed, superheated gas and debris toward the upper atmosphere for reclamation. It is a massive, chaotic cloud of thermal energy. We are going to look like a large chunk of slag. That is the most insane, primitive, and utterly idiotic plan I have ever heard, Nerissa said. Thank you. Hold on. The prodigal shuddered violently as it entered the outer edge of the ejection cloud. The proximity alarm screamed, a symphony of electronic panic. Aaron fought the controls, his knuckles white, using the turbulence as a shield. Below them, Phaeloria Prime swelled, a violet jewel. This is madness, Nerissa hissed, her hands gripping her console. This is Earth Force, Aaron retorted, his eyes scanning the sensor feed. They are blind. The entire grid is looking for a warship, not a piece of trash. We are in... He piloted the ship on a low, atmospheric trajectory, skipping off the upper ionosphere, coming in under the primary defense net. The Imperial Palace, a cluster of crystal spires that pierced the sky, was now visible, glittering in the afternoon sun. But it looked wrong. There, Nerissa pointed. Her voice was cold. The palace is dark. The towers, they are not lit. Aaron saw it. The usual flow of civilian transports and diplomatic shuttles was gone. The palace was an island, silent and foreboding. And circling it, high above, were the unmistakable, hawk-like shapes of Xylar's personal Black Watch. He has locked it down, Aaron said. He is not on his flagship. He is here. He has made the palace his fortress. He holds the throne, Nerissa whispered, her voice full of venom. He is waiting for us. Good. We should not keep him waiting. Aaron did not aim for the main landing platform. He took the prodigal on a screaming dive into the lower city, weaving through the spires. He aimed for a place he had spotted on the approach, the old Imperial Archives, a massive, squat building of ancient stone, set apart from the palace itself, connected only by a single, guarded skybridge. He landed the ship in a plaza, hidden behind the archives, the prodigal's engines whining in protest as he slammed it onto the marble. This is not the palace, Nerissa said, unstrapping. It is not, Aaron agreed. He pulled his rifle from its rack and grabbed a heavy satchel of ammo clips and grenades. It is where our small army is waiting. Nerissa paused. You contacted someone. While you were patching your side, I sent a burst transmission on an old Earth Force military frequency, encrypted, to the only other person in the Imperial Council who looked us in the eye, Duke Kalen. Kalen. Nerissa nodded. He is honorable, but he is cautious. Will he come? He is already here, Aaron said. The doors to the archives slid open, and Duke Kalen emerged, flanked by 20 Phaelorians in the silver and blue armor of the palace guard, the ones who answered only to the Empress herself, not the High Commander. They were armed for war. Kalen strode forward, his aristocratic face a mask of grim resolve. He saw Nereza, her wound, the blood on Aaron, and his eyes hardened. Your Majesty, you are alive. Xylar has declared you lost to the Abomination's influence. He has seized control of the High Council. He is a traitor. Kalen, Nerissa said, stepping off the ramp, refusing to show her pain. And we have the proof. Aaron tossed the data chip to the Duke. Kalen slotted it into a wrist-mounted projector. His face went from grim to shocked, to a shade of cold, profound fury Aaron had not thought the old Phalorian capable of.
He gave the Vorn the codes, Kalen whispered, horrified. Cygnus. He sacrificed Cygnus. He is a fanatic, Aaron said, chambering a round into his rifle. He is the head of the Silent Dawn, and he is in the throne room right now, waiting for us to try and stop him.
Duke Kalen looked at the 20 guards. They were his, loyal to Nerissa. A small force against the thousands of Black Watch troops Xylar commanded. "It is not enough," Kalen said, his voice heavy. "It will have to be," Nerissa said. She raised her plasma caster. "We are not fighting an army, Duke. We are cutting the head off the snake. Xylar's authority comes from his military rank, but his power comes from his cult. We kill him. The cult breaks. The army will see the truth."
"He is in the throne room," Kalen said. "It is a fortress. There is only one approach. The Grand Processional. It will be a killing field." "Then we do not use the front door," Aaron said. He looked at Nerissa. "The ventilation shafts. In your fortress. You said they were a flaw." Nerissa looked at the palace, then at Aaron. A small, dangerous smile touched her lips. "You are learning, human, Kalen. Your men will create a diversion, a full frontal assault on the Grand Processional. Draw the Black Watch down." Kalen nodded, his eyes bright. "A glorious fight. And you, your majesty." "My husband," Nerissa said, and the word was a weapon, "is going to show me the service tunnels." The battle for the Imperial Palace was not a battle. It was a butchery. Duke Kalen and his 20 guards were magnificent. They charged the Grand Processional, their silver armor a stark contrast to the black of Xylar's fanatics. It was a hopeless, glorious, terrible distraction. While the thunder of heavy plasma fire echoed from the main hall, Aaron and Nerissa were in the guts of the palace. They moved through cold, dark maintenance tunnels, climbing ladders, crawling through power conduits. Aaron's head was pounding, the residual echo of his power a constant, sharp migraine. Nerissa was breathing heavily, her hand pressed to her side, but she never slowed. "We are beneath the throne room," she panted, stopping at a circular access hatch. "This opens into the old energy channel, right under the dais." Aaron put his hand on the hatch. "Get ready. He knows we are here." "I am ready." Aaron blew the lock with a microcharge. The hatch exploded upward. He scrambled out, rifle first. The throne room was a sacrilege. The great diamond throne had been shattered. In its place was a black basalt monolith, humming with a sickly green energy. The crystal walls were draped in black banners, bearing the empty-eye symbol of the Silent Dawn. And Lord Xylar was waiting. He stood before the monolith, not in military armor, but in the black robes of a priest. He was flanked by 12 of his elite, his personal guard, armored and silent. "The abomination," Xylar's voice boomed, not with anger, but with a terrible, cold certainty. "And the failed Empress. You are too late. The ritual is complete." "What ritual?" Nerissa demanded, stepping out beside Aaron, her plasma caster raised. "The ritual of cleansing," Xylar said. He spread his arms. "The Cygnian system is gone. A worthy sacrifice. Their death cries have sanctified this place. They have awakened the true God." "You are a murderer," Nerissa spat. "I am a savior," Xylar roared, and he unleashed his power. It was not a subtle pulse. It was a wave of pure, kinetic force. It was the hot, predatory hunger Aaron had sensed, a physical wave of dark energy. It did not feel like Aaron's power. Aaron's was a stillness. Xylar's was a storm. The wave of force struck them. Nerissa was thrown back,
Slamming into the wall, Aaron, his own power reacting instinctively, was enveloped in a bubble of cold stillness. The dark energy washed around him, like water striking a stone. Xylar's eyes widened. So, it is the old blood. You are not just a carrier. You are a vessel. I am just the guy who is going to stop you, Aaron said. He opened fire, his pulse rifle spitting plasma. The 12 guards moved as one. They raised their hands, and a shimmering wall of green energy, the same energy from the monolith, formed around them. Aaron's shots sizzled and dissipated against it. Your toys are useless here, human, Xylar sneered. Nerissa, recovering, fired her heavy plasma caster. The bolt, far more powerful than Aaron's rifle, slammed into the shield. The shield buckled, and one of the guards screamed as it overloaded, but it held. Xylar laughed. He raised one hand. A massive, 10-ton marble pillar from the side of the hall tore free from its mounting and flew across the room. It was aimed directly at Nerissa. No, Aaron yelled. He did not think. He pushed. His power, the cold, silent void, met Xylar's dark, hot rage. The pillar stopped in midair. It hung suspended between them, vibrating, caught in a war of invisible, monumental forces. Aaron's nose began to bleed. The pressure was immense. Xylar was stronger. He was trained. You are an infant, Xylar hissed, his face contorting with effort. You are an accident. I am the chosen. He shoved. The pillar flew apart, exploding into 1,000 pieces of shrapnel. Aaron cried out, throwing up a shield, but it was too much. The force of the explosion sent him flying. He crashed into the steps of the dais, his rifle skittering away. Nerissa, still dazed, was trying to get to her feet. Xylar did not give her the chance. He pointed at her. The shattered remains of the diamond throne, tons of crystal shards, lifted from the floor. They swirled around her, a vortex of razor-sharp edges. It ends. Empress, Xylar said. Your bloodline is corrupt. Your alliance is a sin. You will be the last. He closed his hand. The vortex contracted. Aaron saw it. He saw Nerissa, her silver eyes wide, her hand outstretched, not in defense, but toward him. He saw the crystal shards begin to slice into her armor. He remembered the feeling. In the interrogation room, in the fortress, the cold, silent no. But this was different. It was not no. It was mine. He was not afraid of the power. He was not afraid of the monster. He was afraid of losing her. He was just a soldier. He was a mechanic from Earth. He was an emperor of rubble. And he realized with a sudden, agonizing clarity, in love with this impossible, terrifying, brilliant woman. He would not let her die. Stop, he whispered. And time did. The swirling crystal shards froze, inches from Nerissa's skin. Xylar, his hand clenched, was a statue, his face a mask of triumphant hatred. The 12 guards were silent, unmoving. The dust from the exploded pillar hung in the air, a perfect, glittering constellation. Aaron stood up. The world was silent, gray, and still. He was the only thing in it that moved. The migraine was gone. The sickness was gone. There was only a profound, absolute, and terrifying calm. He felt the universe. He felt the threads of space and the flow of time. He was not a monster. He was a part of this. He was the void. He was the stillness. He walked past the frozen Xylar, his footsteps making no sound in the dead air. He walked to Nerissa. She was beautiful, frozen in her terror. He reached out and, with a gentle touch, pushed the cloud of crystal shards away from her. They drifted backward, slow and harmless. He looked at her, his heart aching. I will not let him hurt you, he said to her still, silent form. Then he turned to face Xylar. He was still just a man. But he was a man who held the universe in his hand. He raised his own hand. He did not feel anger. He felt a deep, cold pity. Xylar had worshipped this, but he had never understood it. Aaron released the stillness. Time crashed back into existence with the sound of a sonic boom. Xylar's triumph turned to confusion as the crystal shards, no longer aimed at Nerissa, converged on him. He screamed, throwing up a shield of dark energy. The crystal impacted it, a furious storm. But it was not the attack. It was the distraction. Aaron pulled. He did not pull at Xylar. He pulled at Xylar's power. Xylar was a vessel of dark, hot rage. Aaron was the void, and the void takes. Xylar screamed, a high, thin sound. The green energy from the monolith, the dark power in his own body. It was ripped from him. It flowed into Aaron, a torrent of raw, chaotic energy. Aaron accepted it. The cold stillness inside him consumed it. It was like pouring fire into a frozen ocean. It is not possible, Xylar gasped, falling to his knees. His robes were smoking. You are unmaking me. You unmade yourself, Aaron said, his voice a low, vibrating echo. He was bleeding, from his nose, his eyes, and his ears. The strain was unbelievable. His body was tearing itself apart. But he would not stop. He focused. He did not just take, he gave. He pushed all the power, his Xylar's, the monoliths upward. The roof of the throne room dissolved, not exploded, dissolved. It turned to fine, glittering dust. A column of pure, white gold energy lanced into the sky, a beacon visible from orbit. It was a declaration. In the grand processional, the fighting stopped. Duke Kalen, bleeding from a dozen wounds, looked up at the pillar of light. The Black Watch fanatics stared in religious horror. Their god had been defeated. In the throne room, there was silence. The monolith was dark, a dead stone. The 12 guards were unconscious, their armor fused. Lord Xylar was kneeling. He was just a Phalorian, an old, terrified Phalorian in a burnt robe. He was broken. Aaron stood, swaying. The world was swimming. The power was gone, retreated, leaving him utterly, painfully empty. He had won. And the cost. He collapsed. He did not hit the floor. Nerissa caught him. She was bleeding. She was bruised. But she was alive. She held him, lowering him gently. Aaron, she whispered, her voice rough. He looked up at her, his vision blurring. He could feel her hand, shaking, on his cheek. He tried to speak. His throat was raw. I trust you. It was not what he meant to say. He meant more. Nerissa's silver eyes, no longer cold, no longer fiery, but soft, looked down at him. She understood. I know, she whispered. She brushed the bloody hair from his forehead. You did it, Aaron. You saved us. You saved me. It hurts, he managed to say, a pathetic, human admission. It will, she said, but you are not alone. He had faced the void. He had faced the monster inside him, and he had won. He closed his eyes. The last sound he heard the thunder of Duke Kalen's silver-armored boots as the Loyalists finally stormed the room. The thunder of Duke Kalen's silver-armored boots was a welcome storm. His men, the 20 Loyalists, flooded the throne room, their faces grim as they took in the scene. The shattered dais, the dark, silent monolith, the smoking, fused armor of the fanatics plastered to the walls. They saw their Empress, wounded, holding a bleeding, broken human. And they saw Lord Xylar, kneeling, his robes burnt, his eyes empty. Seize him, Nerissa commanded, her voice ragged but absolute. Seize the traitor. Kalen himself strode forward, his plasma pistol leveled at Xylar's head. Lord Xylar, you are under arrest for high treason, murder, and conspiracy against the imperial throne. Xylar did not even look up. He was a shell, his power ripped from him. The abomination, he whispered, staring at Aaron. It has unmade the world. It has saved it, Kalen growled, signaling his men. They hauled the former High Commander to his feet. Aaron lay in Neresa's arms, the world a swimming vortex of pain and exhaustion. He was empty. The power that had filled him, that had scoured him, was gone, receded like a tidal wave, leaving behind only the agonizing human wreckage. We did it, he breathed, a bloody froth on his lips. Nerissa clutched his hand, her own grip trembling. You did it. Aaron, rest now. The medics are coming. He started, but his voice was cut off. A new sound. It was not the panicked rush of medics. It was the heavy, rhythmic thud of combat boots. Dozens of them, marching in perfect, disciplined unison. Kalen spun, his weapon raised. His silver guard formed a protective semicircle around Nerissa and Aaron. A new force was entering the ruined throne room. They were not Phalorians. They were human. They wore the charcoal gray combat armor of the Earth Defense Force. Their rifles were sleek, projectile-based weapons, not plasma. They were professionals, and they moved with a cold, precise efficiency, flanking Kalen's men, their weapons held low and ready. At their head, a man walked into the light. He was tall for a human, handsome, with a charismatic smile and dark, intelligent eyes. He was wearing the field uniform of an EDF captain, but he wore it with the casual arrogance of a king. Aaron, from the floor, saw him. A wave of disbelief and profound, desperate relief washed over him, momentarily eclipsing the pain. "Ravan," he choked out. "Ravan, you came." Raven, his oldest friend, the man who had been his bunkmate in basic training, the man who had gotten him drunk after his first promotion. Raven was here. Raven smiled. It was a wide, brilliant smile. He took in the entire scene, the pillar of light fading from the hole in the ceiling, the defeated Xylar, the wounded Empress, and Aaron, shattered and bleeding on the floor. "Of course I came, buddy," Raven said, his voice smooth and familiar. "I could not miss this." He raised his hand. His 30 soldiers snapped their rifles up, aiming not at the traitor Xylar, but at Duke Kalen's men, at Nerissa. The throne room plunged into a new, cold silence. Kalen's face was a mask of confusion. "What is this? Identify yourselves. This is an Imperial zone." "It is," Raven agreed, walking forward, his boots crunching on the crystal shards. "And I am here to claim it." Aaron stared, his mind unable to process what he was seeing. "Raven, what are you doing?" "What I have been planning for 5 years." "Aaron," Raven said. He stopped just feet away, looking down at his friend with a mixture of pity and clinical appraisal. "I am cleaning up the mess." I do not understand," Aaron whispered. "No," Ravan said, with a soft, patronizing chuckle. "You never did. That is why you were perfect." He gestured to the room. "This is magnificent. You did more than I ever expected. Taking out Xylar and his entire cult, and the monolith that was a masterstroke. Aaron, you really are every bit the god they said you were." Nerissa, pushing through her own agony, raised her plasma caster. "Who are you?" "I am Captain Raven," he said, giving her a shallow bow. "Terran Purity Front. Well, founder, actually. The rest of those idiots were just useful tools. But you, your majesty, you were the prize.
The Terran Purity Front, Nerissa spat. The ones who sold Aaron to Xylar.
Sold, Ravan laughed. No, no. You have it all wrong. I did not sell him. I marketed him. I knew about Aaron's heritage from the beginning. Our families go way back. Way, way back. His father hid it. My father studied it. He paced in front of them, like a professor giving a lecture. It was all so simple. I just had to get Aaron in the right place, get him noticed, get him this absurd, ridiculous title. I knew the Phalorians were desperate for an alliance. I knew Xylar was a fanatic looking for his abomination. I just pushed the pieces together. I arranged the failed assassination at the wedding. I fed Xylar just enough information to make him obsessed with you. Aaron, I needed him to push you. I needed him to break you, to force you to, well, to do this. He gestured to the devastation. The betrayal was a physical blow, heavier than any pillar, sharper than any crystal shard. Aaron felt the air leave his lungs. You did this. Aaron's voice was a dead whisper. Cygnus, all those people.
Ravan, they died because of you.
They died so that humanity could live, Ravan snapped, his smile fading, replaced by a cold fire. This whole galaxy, Aaron, it is decadent. It is weak. Look at her. He pointed at Nerissa. She rules 88 worlds, and she was brought to her knees by one traitor. She needed you. She needed a human to save her. He crouched down, getting level with Aaron. His eyes were bright with a terrible, messianic fervor. You see, Aaron, you are the engine. You are the god machine. But you have no vision. You just want to help. I have the vision. This empire. It needs a human hand. It needs my hand. And you are the fist I am going to use to take it.
You are a monster, Aaron breathed.
I am a realist, Ravan countered. Now, here is what happens. My men will secure you. You are clearly burned out. You need rest. The Empress, unfortunately, died in the battle. A tragedy. As did the good Duke Kalen. In the chaos, with Xylar a traitor, I, as the ranking officer of the Allied Earth contingent, will be forced to stabilize the throne. By the time you wake up, Aaron, I will be regent. And you will be my loyal, powerful, and very obedient weapon.
No,
Nerissa said. She was on her knees, but her spine was steel.
Another dog,
trying to claim a lion's throne. You will not have him. You will not have this. She is beautiful, Ravan said, standing up and admiring her. A pity, but she is in the way. He nodded to his soldiers. Kill her, and kill the old Phalorian and his pets. Take Aaron, gently. The EDF soldiers advanced. Kalen's men, though outnumbered, raised their energy lances. For the Empress, Kalen roared and fired. The throne room erupted in a new kind of war. The sharp crack, crack, crack of projectile rifles against the vawoom of plasma lances. It was brutal. Close quarters combat. Aaron, on the floor, watched the nightmare unfold. He tried to reach for the power. He tried to find the stillness. Nothing. There was nothing. He was hollow. He was just a man with a bleeding head and a broken body. He was useless. It is gone. Aaron, Ravan yelled over the gunfire, a note of triumph in his voice. I know how this works. You have used it all up. You are empty. You are just a man. He was right. Aaron was just a man. He watched as two of Kalen's guards fell, their silver armor breached by the heavy caliber rounds. Raven's men were soldiers, not cultists. They were deadly. Nerissa watched it, too. She saw Kalen fighting a losing battle. She looked at Aaron, at his desperation, his weakness. She saw Raven, his eyes cold and victorious, already claiming his prize. She leaned in close to Aaron, her breath warm on his ear, her voice a fierce, desperate whisper. "I trust you, Aaron," she said, her voice breaking. "I will not be his tool. I will not let him use you, or me. Do it. End this. For both of us." She was not asking him to fight. She was asking him to kill them, to use whatever scrap of power he had left to take them both out of Raven's equation. Aaron looked at her, her pale silver eyes, full of pain and trust and a terrifying shared sacrifice. She would rather die with him, a human she had known for 2 days, than live as a prisoner of a man she had known for 2 minutes. He looked at Raven, his friend, the man he had shared his life with, a man so twisted by ambition that he would burn a star system just to rule the ashes. He realized, in that moment, what he had to do. Power was not the answer. Raven craved the power. He believed it was the only thing that mattered. Aaron finally understood. The power was not the prize. It was the curse. The trust he had built with Nerissa, the loyalty of Kalen, that was real. The values, not the void. He had to make a choice, not as a god, but as a man. Raven saw the exchange. He saw the intimacy. His eyes narrowed. No secret goodbyes. The firefight was dying down. Kalen was one of the last ones standing. Raven strode forward, pushing one of his own men aside. He pulled his sidearm, a heavy kinetic pistol. "I will do this myself. It is more poetic." He leveled the pistol, not at Aaron, but at Nerissa's head. "It is over. Aaron, give in." Aaron looked up. He pushed himself into a sitting position, leaning against the broken dais. He was bleeding, broken, and utterly human. "You were my brother, Raven," he whispered, his voice catching. "And you were my tool," Raven sneered. "A good one. But now, you are obsolete." He pulled the trigger. Aaron did not stop time. He did not raise a shield. He did not pull the void. He pushed. He gathered every last, dying, infinitesimal ember of the old blood. Every last trace of the power that lingered in his shattered nerves and his very DNA. He did not push it at Ravan. He did not try to harm him. He gave it to him. It was his final act. He pushed the entirety of the Shaper's curse, the raw, unfiltered, chaotic power of the void, not as a weapon, but as a gift. A gift Raven was not, and never could be, equipped to receive. It was not a stream of light. It was a silent, invisible transfer. It left Aaron and entered Ravan. For 1 second, Ravan's face lit up with a look of ecstatic, divine triumph. He had it. He had the power. And in the next second, the triumph turned to horror. His body was not a vessel. His bloodline was not designed to contain it. He was a normal, ambitious, greedy man. The power, raw and untamed, was a flood of pure creation and uncreation. It was the song of the universe, played at an amplitude that shatters stars. Ravan screamed. It was a sound Aaron would hear in his nightmares for the rest of his life. Energy did not arc from his eyes. He became energy. His eyes and mouth blew open, not with light, but with a torrent of raw, white-hot chaos. The power he had craved, the power he did not understand, unmade him. It melted him from the inside out, turning his ambition, his greed, and his very flesh into superheated, dissolving plasma. He did not just die. He was erased. The horrific, keening scream was cut short. Raven collapsed, a smoking, charred husk, his pistol clattering to the floor. The throne room fell into absolute silence. Raven's soldiers, their leader, their visionary, now a pile of smoldering ash, stared in religious, profound terror. They dropped their rifles, one by one, their hands shaking. The war was over. Aaron lay back, gasping. He felt light. The cold pressure that had lived behind his eyes, his entire life, the constant, low-level thrum of the void. It was gone. He reached inside, searching for the stillness, for the power. There was nothing. It was just him. He had won. He had defeated Xylar. He had defeated Raven. He had saved Nerissa. And in the final, ultimate act, he had destroyed the power, using his enemy's own greed as the weapon. He had sacrificed the god to save the man. He was just Aaron, Emperor of Rubble, a soldier from Earth. He turned his head, his vision blurring. Nerissa was staring at him, her silver eyes wide, processing what he had just done. He saw her understand the depth of his sacrifice. He tried to smile. It was a weak, bloody, exhausted grimace. "Well," he whispered, his voice cracking. "So much for being a god." Nerissa crawled to him, her own pain forgotten. She touched his face, her hand trembling. Her imperial mask was gone. Her warrior's mask was gone. There was only the woman, her eyes shining with unshed tears. It was not awe. It was not trust. It was a deep, painful, profound love. "You were never a god, Aaron," she whispered, her voice breaking. She leaned down, resting her forehead against his. "You were just a man. That was always enough." Duke Kalen, bleeding but alive, watched as his Empress held the human who had saved them all. He quietly signaled his men to secure the terrified Earth soldiers. Aaron looked at Nerissa, feeling her touch. He was empty. He was broken. But for the first time in his entire life, he was completely, blissfully free. He finally let the darkness take him, his hand held tight in hers. He awoke to silence. It was not the silence of the void, the cold, pressurized stillness that had lived behind his eyes for his entire life. It was not the profound, terrible hush of stopped time. It was a simple, medical silence. The gentle hiss of an air filter. The quiet, rhythmic beep of a Phalorian vital sign monitor. And for the first time, his own mind was quiet. The static, the pressure, the sleeping giant in his blood. It was gone. The feeling was terrifying. And it was perfect. He opened his eyes. The ceiling was not the familiar gray plating of a barracks. It was a pale, opalescent white, glowing with a soft, indirect light. He was in a Phalorian medical bay. He felt good, shockingly good. His head did not ache. His body, which he vaguely remembered as a shattered ruin, felt whole. He turned his head. Nerissa was sitting in a simple, elegant chair beside his biobed. She was not in armor or royal robes. She wore a simple, dark blue tunic. Her white hair was unbound, falling over her shoulders. Her face was pale, and there were dark circles under her pale silver eyes. She looked exhausted, human, and utterly beautiful. She was asleep. Her head was resting on her hand, her posture impossibly regal, even in slumber. Aaron just watched her for a long moment. He tried to reach for that sense he used to have, the ability to feel the life force in the room, to gauge her mood. Nothing. There was only him. He had to look at her. He had to guess. He guessed she was tired. He guessed she had been there for a long time. He slowly sat up. The biobed chimed, a soft, melodic sound. Nerissa's eyes snapped open. The warrior queen was back in an instant. She was on her feet, her hand flying to a sidearm he had not even seen on her belt. Then she saw him, awake, watching her. Her hand dropped. The Empress of 88 worlds stared at him, her expression a chaotic mix of shock, relief, and profound, imperial annoyance. "You are awake," she stated. "I appear to be," Aaron said. His voice was hoarse. How long?" "3 days," she said, her voice regaining its crisp, formal edge. "Your injuries were extensive. Your species is biologically fragile. The medical teams were forced to regenerate your entire nervous system. They said the synaptic overload from what you did was unprecedented. They said you should be dead." "I feel surprisingly good for a dead man," Aaron said, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. He was wearing a thin, white medical gown. "Phalorian healthcare is top-notch." "Do not move," she commanded, stepping forward. "You are still healing." "I am fine." To prove it, he stood up. The floor was warm. He felt strong. He felt clear. "See fine." Nerissa watched him, her eyes narrowing. You look different." "I am not bleeding from my face," Aaron offered. "No," she said, circling him slowly, like a biologist examining a new and confusing specimen. Your presence. The void. The stillness. It is gone." Aaron nodded. He took a deep breath. The air was just air. "I gave it away. All of it. Ravan. He took it." "He was not a vessel," Nerissa said, her voice low. "He was a sieve. He could not contain it. You used his own greed to destroy him. And the power." Aaron looked at his own hands. They were just hands. "So, what now?" He felt a sudden, sharp spike of loss. It was an ache, a phantom limb. The power had been a curse. It had been a monster. But it had been his. It had been the wall he hid behind, the weapon he never wanted, but always had. Now he was defenseless. He was just a mechanic. He was just a soldier with no war. "What now?" Nerissa said, her voice turning to steel. "Is the reckoning." She turned and activated a wall screen. The image of the Phalorian Imperial Council chamber appeared. It was in chaos. "The war?" Aaron asked. Paused. Nerissa said, When you unleashed that energy, the column of light from the throne room, it was visible from orbit. It was not just a symbol. Aaron, it was a subspace pulse. It fried the core systems of Xylar's Black Watch fleet. They are disabled. The Vorn fleet, seeing their Phalorian allies, suddenly go dark, panicked. They assumed it was a trap. They have pulled back, 2 sectors, to regroup. So, we get a breather, Aaron said. We get a political firestorm, she countered. Xylar is in a maximum security cell. His Silent Dawn fanatics are broken, leaderless. Ravan's Earth Force troops are in a military brig. But my council... She zoomed in on the faces of the nobles. They looked terrified. They are terrified, she said. The Vorn are outside. The military is shattered. And they just watched a human abomination obliterate the most powerful psychic in the Empire, level the throne room, and shoot a beam of light into space. They do not know the power is gone. Aaron, they think you are a living god, and they are, quite rightly, afraid of what you will do next. Aaron stared at the screen. They want me to be their weapon. They want you to be their savior, Nerissa corrected him. And then, when the war is over, they will want you to be their king. Or more likely, they will try to assassinate you. Power like that cannot be allowed to exist. It unbalances the universe. But it does not exist, Aaron insisted. It is gone. I am just... me. You and I know that, Nerissa said. She walked over to him, her gaze intense. But they do not. We have a choice. Aaron, right now, You are the most powerful, most feared being in the galaxy. We could use that. We could end the Vorn War. We could use their fear to forge a new peace. Aaron looked at her. He saw the temptation in her eyes. The Empress, the politician, saw a path to victory. That was Raven's plan, Aaron said quietly. Rule by fear. Use the God machine. No. He shook his head. No. I spent my entire life afraid of that thing inside me. I will not spend the rest of my life pretending I still have it. We tell them the truth. The truth, Nerissa looked skeptical. The truth is that we are vulnerable. The truth is that our greatest weapon is gone. The truth will invite attack. The truth, Aaron said, walking toward the door, is that the Empire was saved by a human, a fragile, biologically limited human, and an Empress who was brave enough to trust him. We do not need a god, Nerissa. We just need to be smart. And we need to be united. Now, find me a uniform. I am tired of this gown. We have a government to rebuild. Nerissa watched him. The temptation faded from her eyes, replaced by a look of profound respect and something warmer. They will not believe you, she said. They will think it is a trick. Then we will have to convince them, Aaron said. He grinned, a flash of his old, sarcastic self. Besides, I am the Emperor of the Scylan Protectorate. It is time I started acting like it. My methane-based life forms are probably missing me. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. I doubt that. But you will need this. She went to a cabinet and pulled out a new uniform. It was not the crisp, dark blue of the Earth Force. It was Phalorian. It was a sleek, black tunic, cut with silver lines, and a heavy, gray officer's cape. It was the uniform of the Prince Consort. This is not a costume, she said, her voice serious, as she handed it to him. It is a symbol. You are not their weapon. You are my husband, my partner. They will see you stand with me, not above me. Aaron took it. The material was heavy, but supple. Partners. I like that. Does this mean I finally get a key to the adjoining door? Do not push your luck, human, she said, turning away, but he saw the faint flush on her high cheekbones. Get dressed. The council will convene in 1 hour. The new council chamber was a temporary setup in the Hall of Ancestors. It was a stark, stone room, and it felt appropriate. Nerissa sat on a simple, undecorated chair that served as a temporary throne. Aaron stood at her side. He felt exposed without his power, but he also felt solid, rooted. Duke Kalen, his arm in a biocast, his face etched with new lines of authority, stood on her other side. The terrified Earth soldiers had been formally arrested, their government contacted. Earth was in a state of diplomatic panic, disavowing Raven and the Terran Purity Front completely, begging for the Alliance to hold. The council members, the same ones who had capitulated to Xylar, were assembled. They were staring at Aaron. He was, to them, a walking apocalypse. Your Majesty, one old duke began, his voice trembling, and Your Highness, we do not know what to ask. The Vorn, the Vorn are cowards. Nerissa's voice cut through the room, cold and sharp. They have paused. That gives us time. But Prince Aaron, another noble stammered. The display, the power, if you could just push them back. One more time. For the Empire. All eyes turned to him. This was the moment. Aaron stepped forward. He felt Nerissa's hand brush his, a silent, grounding touch. My lords, Aaron began, his voice clear. What you saw, it was not me. It was a curse, a disease in my bloodline that the traitor Xylar sought to weaponize. The monolith he built was a focusing lens. What I did, it was a fever. It was a final, desperate act to destroy not just a traitor, but the very power he craved. He looked at his hands. It is gone. I am just a man. I am a soldier from Earth. I have no magic. I have no divine right. The power you saw is destroyed. I am standing here as nothing more than the prince consort, your Empress's husband. The silence that followed was heavy with disbelief. They did not want to believe it. He lies, one of the nobles hissed. It is a trick. He hoards the power for himself. He speaks the truth, Nerissa said, standing. I was there. I felt it. The power is gone. And I am glad. She paced before them. For a generation, this empire has relied on the strength of our psychic elite. Xylar proved that power is a poison. It corrupts. It invites fanaticism. The Vorn do not fear our gods. They fear our ships. They fear our armies. But our armies are broken, the noble cried. Then we will unbreak them, Aaron said. Kalen, what is the status of the Third Fleet? Kalen, picking up the cue, stepped forward. Damaged, but functional. The Cygnus blockade is gone, but the Vorn are stretched thin. They did not expect to win so easily. Exactly, Aaron said, moving to the holomap. They are overextended. They are paranoid. They think we have a super weapon. So, we let them think it. We do not need the power. We just need the reputation. He began to point, his old soldier's instincts taking over. We use propaganda. We tell the galaxy that the abomination is now the Guardian. We leak footage of Xylar's defeat. We let them wonder what I am. But we do not fight like gods. We fight like survivors. We pull our fleets back. We consolidate. We use hit-and-run tactics. We use the jackdaw strategies, small, fast, and mean. We bleed them. We break their supply lines. The council stared. This was not the talk of a god. This was the talk of a ground-pounding infantryman. Kalen's eyes lit up. Guerrilla tactics, in space, using our speed, not our strength. It is unorthodox. It is brilliant. It is human, Aaron said. And right now, this empire needs a little human ingenuity. Nerissa watched him, a slow, proud smile spreading across her face. He was not a warrior. He was not a god. He was a leader. The weeks turned into months. The reconstruction of the palace began. The great hole in the throne room was sealed. But Nerissa ordered the black monolith of the Silent Dawn to be left there, a shattered, dead reminder of their victory. The war with the Vorn ground on. But it was a new kind of war. It was Aaron's war. Duke Kalen, using the prodigal as a template, commissioned a fleet of small, fast jackdaw corvettes. The Phalorian fleet, once defined by its massive, majestic dreadnoughts, learned to sting like a swarm of hornets. The Vorn were baffled. They were terrified. They were expecting a god to smite them. Instead, they were being pecked to death by 1,000 paper cuts. They could not find the Phalorian fleet. They could not pin it down. And every time they tried to advance, their supply ships were vaporized. Aaron, however, was not on the front lines. He was in his new office, which was large, elegant, and had a terrible view of a ventilation shaft. He was knee-deep in data slates. He was rebuilding the Scylan Protectorate. It is hopeless, he said, throwing a slate onto his desk. My methane-breathing aliens are still hostile. The debris field is still just debris, and the 2 moons have a population of 6. And I think 4 of them are the same guy using different comms. Nerissa entered his office, carrying her own stack of slates. She had taken to spending her afternoons working with him, rather than in her own vast, empty chamber.
A population of 6 is a start, she said, setting her slates down.
And the methane breathers have agreed to trade crystallized minerals in exchange for... What was it? Bubblegum, Aaron said, rubbing his temples. Old Earth bubblegum. Apparently, the sugar reacts with their biology. It is a delicacy. I am now, officially, the bubblegum king of the Scylla system.
A noble title,
she said, her voice laced with dry humor.
It is absurd,
he said. He leaned back in his chair, feeling the phantom ache of the power. He missed it. He missed the certainty. It is, he said, his voice quiet. I still feel the space where it was. It is like I lost a part of myself. Nerissa looked at him, her expression soft. She came around the desk and stood behind his chair. Her long, slender fingers gently rested on his shoulders. Her touch was hesitant, still new. You did not lose a part of yourself, Aaron, she said. You lost a cage. You were a soldier, trapped by a power you never wanted. Now, you are a bubblegum king. It is a promotion. He laughed, a genuine, short laugh. From God Machine to bubblegum king. It is a definite step down.
Is it?
She asked. She moved to the window, looking out. The war is turning. Kalen's Hornet fleet just liberated the Hydra sector. Earth has signed a permanent alliance, and your Jackdaw strategies are now required reading at the Imperial War College. The Silent Dawn has been completely dismantled, and... She paused. And the Council has stopped looking at you like a weapon. They just look at you. Aaron stood and joined her at the window. They look at me like I am the weird human who married the Empress.
They look at you,
she said, turning to him.
Like you are the man who saved them, not with power, but with ideas, with hope.
He looked at her. Her pale silver eyes, no longer frozen, held a warmth that was still startling to him. I did not do it for them, he said, his voice low. I know, she whispered. He had been a soldier. He had been defined by war. He had been hunted, and he had been feared. But standing here, in the quiet, in the peace, with this impossible woman, he was just a man. It is quiet, he said. My life, it is finally quiet.
Quiet is good, she said. But, I had the medical teams analyze your fragile human biology.
Oh, no. What did you find? Am I allergic to Phalorian flowers? Do I need a different atmosphere? No, she said. She reached out and took his hand. Her hand was cool. His was warm. They said that for a man who is just a man, you are remarkably healthy, and that, if we so chose, our alliance could be solidified, biologically. Aaron stared at her. Solidified, biologically. Are you... Nerissa, are you trying to tell me you want to have a kid? She flushed, a deep violet color that was fascinating.
I am saying that the medical parameters are optimal. Our bloodlines, they are compatible.
Aaron laughed. He could not help it. It was a laugh of pure, unadulterated relief and joy. He was no longer a god. He was not a warrior. He was just a man, arguing about bubblegum with his wife, who was awkwardly, empirically, trying to start a family. Nerissa, he said, pulling her close. She was stiff for a moment, surprised, before melting against him. The medical parameters are suboptimal. They are terrible. We are a terrible match. I am a sarcastic, broken-down soldier. You are a 300-year-old telepathic empress. This is the worst idea in the galaxy. So, you object, she asked, looking up at him. a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "No," he said, smiling. "I am just saying. It is a good thing we are not defined by our parameters. We are defined by our choices." He kissed her, and for the first time, in the quiet of his own mind, Aaron felt a true, profound, and human sense of victory. The war did not end with a bang. It ended with a spreadsheet. 5 years later, Aaron, Prince Consort of the Phalorian Empire, Emperor of the Scylan Protectorate, and Chief Galactic Importer of Bubblegum, stared at the final column of the Vorn Surrender Treaty. "They want what?" he asked, rubbing his eyes. He sat not in a throne room, but in a functional, cluttered office that Nerissa had graciously called an adequate reflection of human chaos. Duke Kalen, now High Commander of the Unified Imperial Fleet, stood at ease on the other side of the desk. The Phalorian's silver and blue uniform was crisp, but his expression was one of weary satisfaction. "They are conceding 12 systems, Your Highness," Kalen said, "in exchange for exclusive trade rights to the Scylan azure mineral." "You mean the methane breather crystals," Aaron said, leaning back in his chair. "The azure mineral that is only valuable because my bubblegum trade route made Silas a viable refueling stop. The crystals are, chemically speaking, a decorative byproduct of their waste cycle." "Precisely," Kalen said, and Aaron thought he saw the old Phalorian almost smile. "Your jackdaw strategy broke their supply lines. Your bubblegum strategy broke their economy. They are not surrendering to a god. Your Highness, they are surrendering to a superior logistics chain. They are terrified of being priced out of the galactic market." Aaron sighed, running a hand through his hair. It was threaded with a little more gray than it had been 5 years ago. "We won a galactic war with sugar and accounting. My ancestors would be deeply confused." "They would be proud," a voice said from the doorway. Nerissa entered. She was, as always, an imperial presence, but the 5 years of peace had softened the edges. She still wore the robes of an empress, but she wore them with a new ease. She had, on Aaron's insistence, taken up what he called a hobby. Her hobby was, apparently, ruling the galaxy with a terrifying and newfound efficiency. "The Vorn are practical," she said, moving to the great window that overlooked the rebuilt capital. "They do not fear gods. They fear bankruptcy. You have bankrupted them, my husband. It is a most elegant victory." The Phalorian Empire was different. It was stronger, but it was quieter. The great psychic families, their power base shattered by Xylar's purge and Aaron's sacrifice, had been forced to integrate. The new Imperial Council was no longer just a collection of ancient, telepathic nobles. It was a functioning body of engineers, fleet captains, trade masters, and, to Aaron's unending amusement, 2 methane breathers from Silas who communicated entirely in complex, scented fogs. The palace itself was a reflection of this. The great hall was restored. The ruined throne room, however, remained as it was. The great hole in the ceiling had been sealed with a transparent dome of armored crystal. In the center of the room, the black, shattered monolith of the Silent Dawn stood as a permanent, silent reminder. Nerissa had insisted. She called it a monument to arrogance. Aaron called it the galaxy's most expensive paperweight. It was peace. It was a loud, complicated, exhausting peace, filled with trade disputes, diplomatic headaches, and arguments over shipping lanes. Aaron had never, in his entire life, been happier. "Duke Kalen," Nerissa said, turning from the window. "The final signatory meeting is at noon. You have the fleet. I will handle the diplomats. And you, my husband." I know," Aaron said, standing up. "I have to go and inspect the new bubblegum shipment. The Scyllans are getting particular about the grape flavor." No, Nerissa said. She looked at him, and her pale silver eyes, once so cold, held a familiar, dry warmth. It is the 3rd day of the month. You have your other duty. Aaron's sarcastic smile softened. Right. My other duty. He left the office, leaving the Empress and her High Commander to finalize the end of a galactic war. He walked through the bright, busy corridors of the palace. Phalorians, and now humans, bustled past, bowing respectfully. He was no longer the abomination. He was the prince consort, the human prince, the warrior who had refused to be a god. He found them in the imperial gardens. This, too, was new. The old gardens had been a sterile collection of crystal trees and perfectly geometric, silent pathways. The new gardens were a chaotic, vibrant mess. They were filled with earth-native roses, Phalorian shimmer vines that chimed in the breeze, and patches of the Scylan glow fungus that smelled faintly of mint. It was disorganized. It was their garden. Nerissa was not there. She was. Aaron knew, deliberately giving him this time. He saw his son, Leo, before he heard him. Leo was 3 years old. He had Aaron's unruly brown hair and Nerissa's pale silver eyes. He was a biological impossibility, a living symbol of the new empire. And currently, he was sitting cross-legged on the moss, attempting to teach a Phalorian shadow cat how to fetch. The cat, a creature of pure, sentient darkness, was ignoring him, patiently washing its paws. You are not doing it right, Shadow, Leo said, his voice the clear, high-pitched lisp of a 3-year-old. You have to want the ball. It is psychology. Aaron stopped, leaning against a tree, and just watched. The first year of Leo's life had been a quiet, private hell for him. He had watched the boy with a hawk-like terror, waiting for the first sign, a flicker of the lights, a toy floating across the room. He had dreaded the return of the curse, the re-emergence of the old blood in his own child. Nerissa had watched with a different, but equal, terror. She had scanned him daily with her own psychic senses. She was searching for a spark, for the old blood, or even for simple Phalorian telepathy. She was desperate to find a sign that he was not, as she still saw it, as fragile as his father. They had found nothing. Leo was, by all medical and psychic metrics, utterly, wonderfully, and frustratingly normal. He had his mother's intellect and his father's complete lack of patience. Shadow, I am commanding you, Leo said, standing up and putting his hands on his hips. It was a perfect, tiny imitation of his mother addressing her council. You will retrieve the ball. It is an imperial decree. The shadow cat looked at him, blinked its emerald eyes, and then delicately, slowly, began to lick its own tail. Leo's face crumpled. You are a very bad cat. A traitor cat. Like Zybar. Xylar, Aaron corrected him, walking out from behind the tree. And he was a traitor, not a bad cat. There is a difference. Leo's face lit up. Father, he ran. Aaron scooped him up, a move that was all human father, all clumsy, practiced affection. The boy smelled like dirt in sunlight. The cat is disobeying me, Leo reported, his voice full of serious indignation. That is what cats do, Aaron said, sitting on a nearby stone bench. It is their main job. It teaches us humility, especially emperors. Mother says humility is a tactical disadvantage. Your mother, Aaron said, is still learning how to relax. Now, what did the doctor say at your checkup? Dr. Alara said I am perfectly average, Leo said, puffing his chest out with pride. She said I have exemplary human fragility. Aaron laughed, holding his son close. That was the other duty, the monthly checkups, The scans, the tests, every month for 3 years. Aaron had held his breath, and every month, the Phalorian doctors had returned with the same report. No old blood, no Shaper gene, no void. The sacrifice Aaron had made in the throne room, the act of pouring his power into Ravan, it had not just emptied him, it had burned the very potential of it from his bloodline. The curse, the terrible, magnificent, ancient power, had ended with him. Exemplary fragility, huh, Aaron said, his voice thick. That is the best kind of fragility there is. He looked at his son. This perfect, ordinary boy. This was his victory. Not the Vorn, not Xylar. This... Are you sad? Leo asked, his small hand touching Aaron's face. Aaron realized, with a start, that his eyes were wet. No, kid, I am not sad. I am relieved. It is a very adult, very boring feeling. You will hate it when you are older. I am not sad, Leo declared. I am going to teach the cat. With a strategy. He slid off Aaron's lap and ran back to the ball, his mind already working on a new, human Phalorian plan. Aaron just watched him, feeling a sense of peace so profound it was a physical weight. He was just a father. He was just a husband. He was just a man. That night, he and Nerissa stood on the grand balcony of their private quarters. The same balcony where she had once told him he was a disruptive, chaotic element. The palace was quiet. The city below was a glittering web of violet light, peaceful and busy. In the upper atmosphere, the Aaron anomaly shimmered, a permanent, swirling nebula of pale gold, the scar of his sacrifice, now a tourist beacon. The treaty is signed, Nerissa said. She was not in her robes, but in a simple, dark blue dress. She stood close to him, her shoulder brushing his. The Vorn are our new trading partners. Kalen is furious. He says it is undignified to trade with a foe so soon. Kalen is a soldier, Aaron said, leaning on the rail. A good one. But soldiers think in terms of victory. We have to think in terms of... Well, tomorrow. Tomorrow, she repeated. She looked up at the anomaly. They are still afraid of you, you know. The Vorn, they signed the treaty, but their ambassador asked me if the prince consort could bless their new shipping lane. Aaron snorted. Bless it. What do I look like? I am not a priest. Tell him I am busy. I told him you were busy negotiating the bubblegum futures for the Scylan system, she said. Good. That is much more important. He looked at the nebula. It was beautiful. It is strange to have been that, to have held all that nothing, and now to be this. This, she asked, her voice soft. Just a man. I thought giving it up would make me weak. I thought I would be useless. The phantom limb. You know the feeling of the power that is not there. I know, she said. I felt it too. When I watched Leo fall today. Aaron looked at her, surprised. When he fell, she explained, her voice low. I reached for my power. The old power. The strength to stop his heart, or a traitor's. The power Xylar had. I wanted to command him to be safe, to shield him. And there was nothing. My own psychic abilities have faded. Since his birth, I am almost as fragile as you are. Aaron stared at her. The Empress, the Ice Queen, the powerful telepath. Nerissa, why did you not tell me? Because, she said, turning to him. I was ashamed. I was the protector of the Empire. I was weak. But then, I saw you. You did not reach for power. You did not command. You just ran. She reached out and took his hand. Her hand was cool, His was warm. You are not weak, Aaron. You were never weak. The ancient Phalorian texts were wrong. They spoke of the Shapers as gods. They spoke of their power as a weapon. But they were all fools. Xylar, Raven, even my own ancestors. They did not understand, she said. The power was not the gift. It was the test. It was a choice. And you were the only one in 10,000 years who finally passed. You did not choose to be a god. You chose to be a man. Aaron was silent for a long time. He looked at their joined hands. The Empress said, "I do" to a human. And the human, he just wanted a quiet life. A quiet life is not an option for you. My husband, Nerissa said. She laced her fingers through his. You are still an emperor of rubble, after all. Hey, Aaron protested, his old grin returning. The rubble is now a thriving, multi-system trade hub with an excellent bubblegum export and a very impressive balance sheet. I am a successful emperor of rubble. Of course, she said, the corner of her mouth ticking up. And tomorrow, we have the budget meeting for Leo's preschool. Aaron groaned. Please tell me you are not still pushing for the advanced risk analysis and meditation curriculum. He is 3. Nerissa. It is a sound foundation. Aaron, I will not have my son getting stuck in a tree. I am teaching him to throw a ball, Aaron said firmly. It is a human tradition. It builds character. And it is more fun than analyzing. We will compromise, Nerissa said, with the finality of an empress. He can analyze the ball after he throws it. Aaron looked at his wife, the ruler of 88 worlds, the most powerful woman in the galaxy. And she was compromising on a preschool curriculum. He pulled her close. You are a terrible negotiator, Your Majesty. I am, she agreed. An excellent empress. And you are an adequate husband. Adequate, he said, offended. I am a fantastic husband. I am a bubblegum king. I am the man who taught the gods to kneel. No, she whispered, her smile fading into something softer, more real. She rested her head on his shoulder, a gesture of pure, simple peace. You are the man who taught me that we did not need gods at all. He held her, and they stood together under the light of the anomaly he had created. 2 small, fragile, hopelessly human figures who had, against all logic, remade the galaxy. Not with power, but by simply, stubbornly, and illogically choosing each other.